All right, so good evening, everyone, or good evening, ladies, rather, textilers.
Good evening.
Thank you for taking out time to join the meetup today, and I assure everyone on the call that you're going to have a very inspiring time. We have amazing speakers on the call, ready to inspire us, telling us their stories, taking us through how to use the Power Platform, letting us know how, as a woman, we can take our space and own it, right? Why we shouldn't be at the back of the team, or why we shouldn't be cowardly because you're a woman. So, yes, so I want to thank everyone again, and let's get started. Our agenda for today, kicking off with the welcome notes. And we'll have Tolu coming up. Tolu is one of the ladies, our textilers, who had no prior knowledge of the Power Platform. We have a couple of them like that, about 15 to 20 of the ladies. And they joined our Telegram group. And we started to teach them how to make an app using Power Apps. And she's been able to create her own Power App. So, and she's going to demo that to us. So this is also a fallout of the last session that we had. After that, when you come next, speaking to us about how we can find our seats at the table and how we can also own that seat. So that's a very interesting session, and I honestly look forward to it. We're going to hear Megan's story. Megan is one of our top women in the Power Platform community, and I've actually been seeing her on Twitter a very long time, like her image, and I keep wondering, oh, who's this fantastic lady out there? So I'm really excited that she accepted the invite and she's here today. She's going to share her story with us. And we also have Lucy. Lucy is amazing. She's done great stuff with the Power Platform, and she's going to show us how to build a conference app in 30 minutes. I really look forward to that also. And we have Azure. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, but it's a very fascinating and fantastic name. Because we all know why, right? So it's a name that will catch anyone's attention in the Microsoft community. And yes, she is going to tell us about her story also, which is a very inspiring one. And then Abigail is going to wrap up with the Q&A. So if you have any questions in between the sessions, you can please drop them in the comment box. And once we're done with all the speakers, we'll take all the questions together at the end of the speaking sessions. So thank you so much. So that's the agenda for today. Highlights of the last meetup. Last meetup, we had Eliza talking to us about blogging and how we can contribute to the Microsoft community. So I mentioned then on the call that I've always had a desire to blog. I think Lucy also knows about this, but I never just got around to doing it, right? So when she came on the call last meetup and she was like, "Oh, this is very, it's easy, you know, we can all do this." So I started and I wrote my first blog, and I was so excited, and I actually found that it was easy. Like it was just like I was writing an email to a friend or a letter. So yes, that's me there. And we also have Nadini. Nadini joined us in the last meetup, and she also started writing her blog on machine learning. Now, the beautiful thing I found so interesting about this is we both published our blogs on the same day, like June 17th. So I found that really, really interesting. So this highlights of our last meetup. And yes, Tolu is also a highlight of the last meetup, where Donna came on and she gave us a challenge, 30 days challenge, for those who haven't built an app before, like you've never used Power Apps before. And she gave us 30 days challenge. And I'm really excited that Tolu took on this challenge and she was able to build her app, right? We showed her, showed her the basics of Power Apps, and she took it on, spent the time, dedicated the hours into putting the app together, and the app looks really beautiful. So Tolu is a bit about Tolu. She has some experience in supporting the Azure platform and has never used Power Apps before or the Power Platform. So I'm excited, and I would hand over to her to kick off the session. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm here.
Hello.
Okay, that was an introduction for you. Thank you. My name is Olajide-Bello, like she mentioned, and I'll be talking about my first app. And I actually haven't used Power Apps before, like I mentioned to Foyi, and trust me, this was an for me. And I joined TechStylers about a week ago. That was through the through an Azure group I belong to. I got the link for TechStylers there, and I joined. And here I am today using Power. And through Foyi and the facilitator Amara, I and some other ladies were able to learn how to work with Power Apps, and I was able to come up with something. And that's my attendance portal. So I'm going to be showing you how I built the attendance portal and the finished work itself. So let me know if you can see my screen. Thank you.
Okay, not yet, but I think it's coming up.
Yeah, okay. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Okay.
All right, we can see it now.
Okay, great. So Amara taught us how to, work with the attendant, how to create an attendance portal, and she challenged us to, do something much better than what she has done. And this is an attendance portal, and it has the check-in button, the checkout button, an admin monitor button, and an exit button. Now the check-in is for you to sign in. The checkout is for you to sign out. The admin monitor is for the admin person, as the name implies, for the admin person to see what's going on, who are signed in, and all that. Now the exit button takes you out of the app itself. Now I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of how this works. Can everyone see my screen, please?
Yes, we can.
All right. So once you click on the check-in button, it takes you to another page telling you that your check-in was successful. And then once you click this back button, it takes you back to the home page. And when you are ready to check out, you click on the checkout button. It takes you to another screen, which is the checkout screen, telling you that your checkout was successful. Now the admin monitor, let me show you how that works. Now this is a one user demo, and that's why we have the admin monitor here, and that is why I can actually come into this this page. It's not for everybody, it should be for the admin alone, but I just added it on this page. Now the admin monitor page contains the staff name, the check-in details, and the checkout details as well. Now for the check-in details, you start the date and the time that you check in. This is the last one that was done. Okay. Checked out 7:12 p.m. That's now, and this is the date. That's today's date. So that's about the admin monitor page. To go back to the home screen. Exit button takes us out of the app. But before I click on that, I just want to let you know that for the check-in and the checkout, the codes for this, there is a location attached to it. So you cannot check in if you are not in the location you're supposed to check in. That's for example, let me use the workplace, your workplace. If it does not contain the location of your workplace, you can't check in. If your location, doesn't tally with the location of the workplace, you cannot check in. Same thing for the checkout. as well. And this is just to make sure that there is no cheating with the check-in time and check-out time. Because if that clause is not added, anybody can check in from anywhere, and it will just mark you present. Clicking the exit button takes us out of the app.
All right. Thank you so much, Tolu Lopai. So what Tolu has been able to do is she has been able to create this attendance portal app, and in her expressions, she has set a longitude. She has set a longitude and the latitude, the geolocation of a particular location. So let's assume that, like, you want to, especially now with the whole COVID situation, the organization wants to know the number of employees. The organization wants to know the number of employees that are coming in at to a particular location. So the app would have the geolocation settings of the office, and anyone that comes to the location can check in. But if you're sitting at home and you're not in the office and you click on check in, it's not going to allow you because it's comparing your current location with the location of the office. So once there is a match, then the check-in is successful. So thank you so much, Tolu Lopai, for the amazing application and for pulling it through. Again, it's our first Power app, and I think it's an amazing one. So thank you, and thank you for doing this. All right, so our plan is to host a newbie every month. So we have to lock by this month. Next month, we're going to have another TechStyler who hasn't used the Power platform before and has been able to spin up an app within 30 days. So the objective of doing this is to encourage the new ladies that are just getting to know the app, and also to instill confidence in them by presenting what they've done themselves. All right, so thank you, Tolu. Now I'm going to hand over to Onye. Onye she's a senior executive in a very well-known telecommunications organization, and she has been able to rise in her career to an executive role. So she wants to give us some tips of how she was able to do this as a woman, and how we can also find our space wherever we are on the table and own it. So Oye, you're up next. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Foyin. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Or rather, should I just say hello, everyone? Because I'm not exactly sure of what the time zones are. Very happy to be here. Very happy to be part of this session. I actually joined the first meetup, and I found it quite interesting and enlightening. And I left it telling myself I was going to go and make sure I start to work at developing my own apps. Unfortunately, I just haven't had the time yet. But Foyin, don't worry. I'm going to promise you that one of these meetups, I'll be the newbie that will be introduced, at the session, and I'll be talking through my own app. Okay, so hello again. So like Foyin said, my name is Onye. I actually handle enterprise marketing for MTN Nigeria. Pretty exciting job, you would say, because my role covers both product development and management, as well as business intelligence. So I deal quite frequently with people who, or my team members have to also, I have team members who are, very techy, and team members who are totally focused on developing and playing around with the Power apps. I remember after the first meetup, I did call up one of my guys, the guy who is responsible for BI, business intelligence, and I said to him that I was going to give him a run for his intelligence, because now I'd learned that I could actually go and develop, especially the Power BI myself, and I wouldn't have to, wait for him to actually give me feedback all the time. So it's a good forum, and I really want to commend you for putting this together. And I do believe it's the right way to go, and it's going to continue growing. Now, what do we all have in common? What we have in common is we all believe we're women in technology. Now, that is an exciting thing, because this is an exciting time, and really and truly, technology has gotten to a stage where it is actually driving businesses, even more so now because of the pandemic. So it's very imperative that as players in the technology space, we recognize this, but we are also aware of how relevant this is to the overall business objectives any organization could have. So this evening, I just want to touch a bit based on some of my own personal experiences, and also some of the, like classic tips that you would require to make sure that as a career woman, you actually know how to take that seat and own it. Because historically and based on statistical trends, one of the challenges we have as women is, being able to rise in our careers and actually staying on the road. When you check at entry level for the percentage between women and men, what you find is, to a large extent, you always have more women, at entry level. But once you start to get to mid-management, it starts to change. And you then have a situation where the men are taking over, the space, and women are distracted by other life issues, maybe getting married, having children, having shared attention, and all of that. Now, that is one way to look at it. But another way to also look at it is the fact that, as women, we are very results oriented. We like to hold on to something and make sure it works, to give it our best shot. Now, in doing that, sometimes we get very myopic. We get very tunnel visioned, and we just stay on, what we know. And in this instance, it's technology and the understanding of technology. But what I would like to pass on today is, how relevant it is for us as women in technology to also recognize that first and foremost, we're career women. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to move ahead in our careers while still being women in technology. How do we achieve this? We have to step back and start to, function like business leaders or like business executives who have a plan to get to the top, not bearing in mind what our, our primary competency is, which in this case is a place in technology. So what are some of those things that we need to make sure we have in place to ensure that we are able to take our seats? And when I say take our seats and own it, I actually mean it literally. And I'll give you a little example. How many of us really, when we go in for meetings, management meetings or meetings with our fellow colleagues, if you go into the room and there's a table and there are seats around the table, and then there's a second layer of seats, how many of us actually go and sit at the table? A lot of times we want to go sit at the back row. For many reasons, sometimes it's because, I don't want to be too into the meeting because I have some other things I'm focused on. So I want to be able to get those things done on the side. Or it's because I don't believe I should be seated at the table. I'm not sure I've earned it yet. I'm not so certain that, it will be okay, or what will be said if I'm seen to be seated at the table. But I would like to let us know that the truth is nobody is going to invite you to the table. So if you want a slot at the table, you have to take it yourself. And you have to recognize that you have strengths. Each and every one of us is imbued with some strengths, and we all have strengths that we should be confident to bring forward whenever we're engaging in the workplace. Now, so the first place to start is to start with yourself as a person, bearing in mind that nobody is going to help you, get to where you need to get to. You need to make that conscious decision yourself to start to drive your career forward. So the first thing to do is to make sure you have a growth mindset. Now, what do I mean by a growth mindset? A growth mindset means you've set out goals for yourself. You understand exactly where you want to be at a certain time, and you understand what you need to do to get to that position. You're also hungry. You're not content. You wouldn't say, oh yeah, I'm an engineer, and I manage the data center, or I am responsible for handling the switches, and so it's fine. I love my job. I'm happy there. No, you have to want more. You have to want to be that person who actually leads the team and tells the team how to manage the data center and how to manage the switches. And it's fine. It doesn't make you, a negative person or an aggressive person, or somebody who should be looked at in some way. It just shows your ambition. And for every one of us, regardless of how it is we started out, we do actually want to make progress in our careers and in our lives. So it's very imperative that we are aware in the first instance of what our strengths are, and we start to leverage those strengths and push them forward. Now, another thing that we also need to do is sometimes you set goals for yourself and you realize that situations change, or you have to make some adjustments. Maybe you got married and therefore you have to start thinking about, relocating, or maybe having kids or something. And that might, in a way, have to make you change or relook at your goals. It's fine. It's okay to relook at whatever goals you have set for yourself, as long as at the end of the day, you know what your purpose is, and you know that you intend to grow, and you intend to stay focused on all activities and initiatives that would help you to drive growth. And it's always very important. Sometimes at work, we also realize that when there's a task or when something happens or comes up in a moment, our male colleagues are usually faster to stand up and raise their hands and say, hey, I'll take it on. Let me work on that. And then we sit back and we're wondering and saying, okay, I could solve that problem. I actually know what to do to solve the problem. But I'm shy. I don't want to raise my hands. I don't want to take up that responsibility. Guess what? You need to take that responsibility, because the only thing that stands between you and the next step is the fear you allow yourself to have. So it's very, very important that as ladies and as women who are, technically sound, who understand and know our onions in our area of expertise, that we're able to seize the moment as soon as it shows itself. Very, very important. Now, another thing that we also need to do, because you see, I've come to realize, in the course of my career, that we also are very, we're almost unforgiving of ourselves. You make a mistake and you're like, oh my goodness, how could I have let this happen? Oh goodness. And that's like pulls you back almost like, 2-3 years. And you keep dwelling on the fact that you made mistakes. Now, on the other hand, our male colleagues, they make mistakes, they laugh over it, they drink over it, and they move on, and the next second, they are jumping and they are as confident as they could be. Maybe on the inside, they don't feel as confident, but that's not what we see. What we see is their ability to step forward and move forward even when they make mistakes. Now, so what is very important for us as women is also to learn how to own our mistakes. We're human. You will make a mistake. So we make mistakes, we learn from them, and we move forward, and we move forward better and stronger. So it's very, very important. Now, another area that we don't do so well in is in networking, engaging. It is so very important. There is so much more than just being that techie great one. You have to do more than that. You have to be that person who your colleagues at work feel comfortable relating with, who goes out of her way to actually get interested in things around the business, the things that drive the business. You know, what is the business? What is your organization in the business of? How relevant is it to your customers? And you have to understand all of that and understand how the role you play actually fits into the larger picture of the organization, and how what you do is actually adding value to the organization. Once you have that understanding, it helps to build your confidence, and it helps you to start to step away from your area of comfort into, you know, the overall business and organizational management, which is very critical for moving forward. So, you know, for me, it's really very important that as ladies, we, you know, develop those networks. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to have those corridor conversations. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid when, you know, someone invites you for an event and you say to yourself, I don't know anyone else there. That's fine. You don't need to know anyone. You will go there and you will meet people and you will make those relationships and you will start to have those conversations where you start to get career advice and you're able to mingle with other like minds and move forward in your career. So it's really very important. Now, beyond networking, another thing that is also very critical, and it applies to every single one of us, because you are never too old to learn, is to have mentors. To have mentors and to have coaches. It's so, so, so critical. You always need to have someone that looks out for you. Let's just say, you know, you are too shy to take that seat. You need someone to be able to look at you and say, come and sit down. You know, have such relationships within your workplace. There must be someone senior within your workplace that you can actually, you know, reach out to sometimes and speak to. But I think the real important issue is that as a person, as individuals, it's so very critical that we are in control of how we manage our relationships within the workplace. And we are determined to actually step away from our technical competence and start to be seen as a clear potential business leader. I remember when very early in my career, I had a conversation with one of my bosses, and he said to me, you know, you're very good. You are really very good, but I think you need to do quite a bit in terms of managing your interpersonal skills. You know, you technically you're sound. Nobody can question your abilities on the job. But at some point, it starts to be more than just your abilities. It starts to be about, you know, your EQ, your ability, your SQ. How are you able to socially manage yourself in extended gatherings, in extended sessions with extended groups of colleagues? So it becomes very important. But for whatever purpose you decide to serve, it is very, very important that you start to let your voice be heard. If you are in a meeting, if you have any thoughts, no thought is stupid. That is the honest truth. A lot of times we overthink things before we put them forward. But the truth is, the male colleagues don't. They just say it. They just say it. And sometimes because they just say it and they say it with such confidence, they sound very smart. But you and I would sit back and say to ourselves, what did he just say? Did he actually just make any sense? You know, but we keep quiet. We know what to say. We know how to say it, but we don't say it. So it's very, very important that we find our voices. It took me some time, but I found my voice. I don't know whether I should say it took me time, or I should say it took me time to find the right voice, you know, because initially, you said, because again, as women, you like to say it as it is. You don't understand why you have to be diplomatic, you know. So it's something we also have to learn, because if you actually want to take a place on the table, you really have to speak the language that is acceptable. And the language that is acceptable at the table is diplomatic. So you have to learn how to say and speak in the right way without, you know, say what you mean whilst understanding what others mean. It is so very important. all because no idea or no opinion is actually wrong. Everyone is entitled to have an opinion and to voice it, and so are you. So it's very, very important that you get to let your voice be heard, but just make sure that you do so whilst empathizing with the rest of the team and making sure that you're adding value. So for every time you speak, you should be adding value. Now, another thing that is also very, very important is we have to, within ourselves, lose that fear, because a lot of times you're held back by fear. I know I suffer from it sometimes, even as far as I've come. Sometimes someone calls me up to take up a task or to handle a project, and my first instinct is to say no, because I start to say to myself, oh, what if I fail? What if I look bad? What if? Now, the truth is, it's only what you don't explore that you would never know. So there is no harm in exploring. Why? Because it's okay to make mistakes. You would learn from them and you would move. So it's very, very important to be very conscious of that innate fear that usually comes through once you start to move out of your comfort zone. It's very, very critical. Now, the next thing for me that also I have found to be very, very useful is development. So what we're doing here is, it's amazing. It's awesome. That is why I will forever be a fan of, what we have at the TechStylers. It's amazing. It is important that we constantly develop and rewire ourselves. It doesn't always have to be, classroom learning. Sometimes you develop through experiential learning. You learn from people who have actually had a particular experience. You learn by practicing. You learn a lot of things, but you must constantly keep updating yourself. You need to make sure that you are 10 times better than the next person to you. And the only way to achieve that is to constantly be developing yourself. Continue to seek knowledge. And it shouldn't just be knowledge in the technical space. It has to be business-wide knowledge. You have to be very good and very clear about understanding the basic KPIs that drive a business. What are those financial KPIs? What are those business objectives? What are the revenue objectives? What exactly is the business focused on? What is your business strategy? How do they plan to move forward into, to keep themselves as a sustainable business? It is very important. So you have to take an interest in understanding, how and why your business, your organization is in being, Find some time, do a lot of reading if possible. Find time to read business articles, Bloomberg articles. I'm a fan of Bain Insights, McKinsey Insights. I read, I have them downloaded on my phone, and I check what is happening very frequently. The reason is simple. You just need to keep abreast with what is happening beyond the area of your core competence. And now, just before I close, I would like to just reiterate for me 3 very important elements of making sure that you earn that seat and own it. The first one is how we communicate. It is so important. And if we remember that communication is 2-way, i.e. you listen and then you speak. So it's very, very important that we learn the right ways to communicate. And I've spoken about always being, always empathizing and making sure that you first of all, listen to understand the other party, your colleague, and then you speak. Once you start to show some competence in how you communicate, the business starts to take a look at you. It becomes clear that you are more than just that techie. There's more to you. The next thing to also focus on is your compatibility. How compatible are you with the rest of your colleagues? How do you blend in with them? How do you add value at every point in time when you guys are together or when you have teamwork to deal with? You need to be certain of this. You can't always be right and you can't always be wrong. and you can't always see the wrong in everyone else. So you have to be seen to be a very effective team player, someone who allows for mistakes from other colleagues, but also is able to, get the team focused on the right things without sounding or seeming condescending. That is very critical. And then finally, in every team, every member has a role to play. And it is very, very important that at each point in time, you have the strengths of each member of the team actually, amplified. So you have to make sure that your strengths are amplified in such a way that it is seen to be value adding to the team. I had a colleague sometime past who, she was very, very good, very, very good. She used to handle our corporate communications and PR. She was excellent on the role, So you would say, she was a subject matter expert. Now, from an organizational perspective, she was seen to be toxic. Why? Because even though she had views, her views were always, at divergence to the direction that the business actually wanted to be going at a particular time. So at some point, it wasn't making any sense. And of course, she had to leave the organization because clearly, even though she was very good, she just wasn't actually fit for purpose for the role that she was occupying at that time within the organization. So this is something that we all need to be very, very, particular about. We need to make sure that we are very much aligned with the chemistry of the business, with the chemistry of the organization. Once we show, a clear ability in these 3 C's, our compatibility, our chemistry, and our communication abilities, it becomes clear that we deserve that seat, and we will then own it. And we will even be not allowed to get up from the seat by the rest of the people at the table, because they will be able to see clearly the value that we are bringing on board. And then we are able to move forward and progress in our careers as women. Now, in closing, I would just like to say that the secret to being very successful in today's market is, to be able to walk to the beat of your own drum. Don't start to think about what the other party is doing or what someone else is focused on. Just stay on your own path, Listen to your intuition. Listen to your intuition. Be clear about your goals. Once you are certain about your goals and your purpose, then make sure you follow through. And trust me, you will earn that seat at the table. Thank you.
That was amazing. Wow.
Super, super amazing. Thank you so much, Oye. Thank you so much. Like, I was literally scribbling.
Thank you very much.
It's always inspiring to listen to you. I've learned so much. We need to learn how to communicate. Yes. I am the kind of person that I would say it as it is. If I feel that you didn't do well, I will tell you, you didn't do well, you failed, it was your fault. I wouldn't, and I discovered that it was causing conflicts between myself and I sit in a team that has about 7 men, and I would let them know that the way you did it was wrong. And I would see so much reaction, because later I understood that, okay, maybe I had to say it in a more subtle way and yet still getting my message passed across to them. So that's another highlight for me. We all need to work on our communication skills. It's important. And then also being a fan of others is another thing I wrote here. That's blending. Being a fan of others, I think it's also important, and it's something that I have learned in the power community, the power addicts, hero making, fan of others. If you have an issue in the community, they take it up like it's their own. You find so much help and support, and there's no other way to blend with the team than that. If anyone has a problem, you are able to come and say, oh, how can I help you? Have you tried this out? Have you tried that? So that's really something big about the Power Addicts and the Power community. And also, I've also tried to take that into the workplace, where when people have issues, I try to see it as my issue and support them through it. So that's one of my major highlights there. And also, we have to learn to forgive ourselves, right? We made mistakes, okay, move on. Move on. So thank you so much. I mean, I can go on and on about what I've learned today. We shouldn't just stay in our tech space. I know we are all techies on the call. We love our technology so much, but it's important that we also learn a bit of the business.
Yes.
So thank you for reminding us again. We will do that. So thank you so much, Onye. If you have any questions, we can drop it in the chat box. So we'll take it during Q&A. All right, up next we have Megan.
Okay.
Yes,
Let me
yes,
just go
yes.
ahead and share. And just let me know when you can see.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, awesome. All right. So first of all, thank you very much for having me and asking me to speak. This is a little bit different for me because usually what I'm doing is some kind of tech presentation. So it's kind of a bit of a step back and to kind of think about the journey that I've had getting to the point that I'm at now. So just so that you can kind of have a little bit of information about who I am. I've got a few links up there. So I'm very active on Twitter and LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel, a website, and then also just recently started a podcast with another wonderful lady, Lisa Crosby, who's in Australia. And she and I do the Up podcast and I think episode 5 is coming next week. So we've done a few so far, and that's a lot of fun. All right. So what I wanted to do is kind of talk about how I started. And one of the key things to me is it doesn't matter where you start from. And I think for most people, when you hear about how they got into this, it's not from a technology background at all. So having said that, I would say probably about 8 years old was when we first got a computer in our family. I've got 3 siblings, and so we had one computer that was in the living room. And one of the things that I did at 8 was I coded my first program, and I wrote something that was called Meg's Flowers, and it was basically like squares that grew and basically grew a flower, and then the petals fell off and so on. So it went through the season. So I kind of got a little bit of a bug then, and I really loved computer games. I loved Tetris. I loved there was a computer game called Dizzy, where it was an egg that ran around and had to solve problems. So I really loved doing computer games and things like that. And then I kind of went through school and took a wrong turn, but not what you think. Basically, I went into hospitality. So I had all this excitement about computers and computer programming. And then I went into restaurants and hotels, which was kind of like, I don't know why I did it. I still think back, but I think everything happens for a reason. So I went into hospitality. And as part of that, I went to America, I met a man, fell in love, and then went back and moved there and was there for 14 years. So again, that's why I say everything happens for a reason. I'm still very happily married after 22 years together. So I worked in hospitality all the way up until 2007. And then I had a bit of a career change. And if anyone knows Alison Mulligan, who was on the call, and I always say, I apologize because she's in recruitment, but I went into recruitment and I really didn't like it. But what I did still like was learning and teaching myself things. So as I was working in recruitment, I was teaching myself how to do HTML and CSS and learning about SEO, learning about how to kind of code other types of things. So what I did was I then sidestepped into a software company, and the software company that I went to was for the software that we used at the recruitment agency. So I'm a really firm believer in everything does happen for a reason. If I hadn't stepped into recruitment and hated it, but loved the software that we use, I would never have been able to get the job at the software company. So I worked there, and during the time that I was there, I started out as a consultant, I was a trainer, I moved into account management, and I left that company as the client services director. So you talk about taking a seat at the table. I have never apologized at all. I'll basically be the first one to the table, pulling out my own chair. So I'm very much an advocate for that. So went through all of that, worked there for about 10 years, and then basically decided to kind of look at my career a little bit differently. So during the time of being at that software company, I started using CRM. So we talk about the Power Platform, you hear about Dynamics. CRM is originally what it was called, Microsoft CRM, and I started with version 2011. And I started out as just a user of that software, and then I became what people might call a super user or a power user, and then I became the trainer for that software. During that time, and again, we've just heard such an empowering talk about continually learning, and I always want to learn new things. I started my own small business during the time of working at the software company, because in 2008, I don't know if this was global, but definitely in the UK and the USA, things just went really, really downhill in terms of the economy, and people were getting laid off at the place that I worked at, and there were 3 rounds of layoffs. I survived every single one, but I got to a point where I thought, right, I need something potentially to fall back on. So I started my own small business. I was doing web design, I was doing SEO, I was doing social media management for small businesses. Then it got to a point where we moved back to the UK, or for my husband, he moved from the USA to the UK, obviously for the first time. So we moved back, and I moved back with the same company. And again, this goes to kind of taking the seat at the table for yourself. When I decided that we were going to move back, I said I'd like to move with the company, because it was a US company, but it was owned by a company in the UK, or during that time it was purchased by a company in the UK. And I said, I'd like to move. Can I have a job? And they said, what can you do? And I literally wrote down everything that I really liked to do and said, well, I like web design, I like marketing, I like SEO, I like social media, I like blogs. So they basically said, well, we don't have marketing, so can you basically do the marketing? So I ended up becoming the marketing director. And that's where I started learning about Click Dimensions, which is part of CRM, or a tool that you can use within CRM. So I kind of made my own sort of new destiny by moving back to the UK and saying, here's what I want to do. And then when I ran the marketing department, got that sort of up and running, did that for a couple of years, and then realized that actually the things that I now was really starting to love more was all about CRM and all about Dynamics, essentially, and became the global CRM administrator for that organization. So it got to the point where we were still on a much older version of CRM, and that was, I think, 2015 was the version that we were on. And again, we talk about that Power Platform and Dynamics 365. That was where everything was at. It was online, it was cool, it was sexy, it was like, that was what I wanted to know. And we weren't going to move anytime soon. So I realized that I needed to leave. And then I went and I worked for 3 different Microsoft partners at different stages in my career. The first one, there just wasn't enough work and I was really bored, but I was bored. And so I started using my time to, again, carry on learning. And that's when I started my blog platform. I worked for another one that just didn't seem to see the value of CRM or Dynamics. And then the last one I worked for, it was a great experience. I think working for a Microsoft partner for me was a very necessary experience. It wasn't necessarily the best, but it was necessary because it gave me so much experience learning how to work in projects, learning how to work with a team, understanding different roles that existed in a project, the project managers, solution architects, the consultants, the testers, everything that kind of goes along with a big project. So again, necessary, not necessarily the best. Some partners aren't that great. So all along through that, it was continual self-learning and development. I am bored if I am doing the same thing over and over again. I have to keep learning and teaching myself something new. So finally, everything kind of came to fruition, and I went out on my own as an independent power platform consultant, and I did that basically the 1st of January. That was it. I ended the last year as an employee that worked for a Microsoft partner and jumped and went out on my own. I didn't really have much of a safety net financially. I just had faith in myself and knew that it would be okay. So I did that, and it's been fantastic. So we talk about sort of the power platform, and we've all come to this because of the community, and because we've found the community and realized that there's a place here for each and every one of us. So for me, getting into the community, like I said, I started the blog when I was working for a Microsoft partner who had no work. They basically had hired 10 consultants and had work for 2 of them. So it was just learn and learn. So I started my blog then because I was learning more about the platform. In January 2018, and if you ladies, if you're not in the sort of dynamics side of the world of Power Platform, if you haven't ever dabbled in that, you probably have no clue about this. But in 2018, I had a blog post that showed how you could add emojis. It was the stupidest, simplest little thing, but putting emojis into what we would call an option set, so basically a drop-down list. And it got picked up or noticed by Chris Huntingford. So if you have seen Chris Huntingford online, he's very vocal. He works for Microsoft. He was a Microsoft MVP prior to that, but he saw it and he just shouted it from the rooftops. And all of a sudden, everybody was starting to come to my website and know who I was. So in 2018, I set myself a goal, and I said, right, I want to do 1 blog post every single week in 2018. And I did it. Set myself a goal in 2019 where I wanted 1 blog post and 1 video each week. And I did that. And then I kind of, to me, it's a bit controversial in terms of people saying I'm working towards MVP. I never felt that, but I said I'd really like to be an MVP. And in May of last year, I became a Microsoft MVP, Business Applications MVP. And then, like I said, in January 2020, I became an independent Power Platform consultant. Then in May of this year, I started the podcast that I was mentioning before, the Up podcast with Lisa Crosby. The future, who knows? But for me, the future is very bright. I think you set your goals and you work towards them and you achieve them. If you don't set any goals, you're going to become stagnant. You're not going to keep moving forward. So, a couple of things. Keep learning all the time. Stay in your lane. Actually, if anyone ever says that to you, it's absolutely crap. Do not think that you have to pick something and that's it and not veer outside of that. Don't put yourself into a box, because there are so many people out there that will put you into a box for you that you don't need. So never, ever think you have to stay in your lane. Find something that interests you and then learn it. Repeat that. And don't ever feel like you need to stay in one place ever. Don't feel like I'm in this career and that's my career for life, or I'm learning this and going down this path and that's what I have to stick with. You never need to stay in one place at all, ever. So don't feel like you need to do that. So again, set your own goals, figure out what your success looks like, figure out what will make you happy and what will make you feel like you have achieved something and that you've worked towards something, and figure out what that looks like to you. Don't feel that you should be pressured in, or don't feel pressures around you of doing the same thing as other people do. But do find yourself a mentor. So don't think I have to follow in the same footsteps as this person, but find someone that you admire and that you appreciate the path that they have taken, and reach out to them and say, hey, I'd really like to find out how you got from A to B to C, or whatever it might be. And I think one of the things is, if you want to start a blog, go ahead and do it. If you want to start a YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. And if you want to become an expert in something, then go ahead and do that as well. So don't feel, we talk about kind of maybe being shy or maybe being intimidated in a group of men or men and women. There can be some women that others find intimidating. I think if you want to talk to somebody and find out how they achieved something, just ask, and I think most times you'll find that person will be more than willing to talk about it. If somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I'm really interested in how you did such and such, how did you start your blog, how did you start your YouTube channel, and so on, people are more than willing to talk and share and help, because I reach out to people all the time if I'm stuck with a flow in Power Automate, or if I'm trying to do something in a Power App and I'm banging my head against a wall. There are people that I know, okay, I can reach out and ask that person, or I just saw this other person share a blog post where they did something similar, but I don't quite understand this piece of their blog. Just reach out and ask them and find out, hey, how did you do this? Can you help me out? So I know that we will have questions towards the end. I have this slide in here for you, but if there are any questions or you want to ask anything, we can go ahead and certainly do that.
Okay, thank you so much, Megan. I mean, it was super, super amazing just listening to your story. I was just typing on the chat that you're such a legend, right?
Oh, but you see, the thing is, though, I find that quite, I don't know if uncomfortable is the right word, but I remember before I became an MVP, or before I got to the point where people were saying, hey, can you do a presentation? I saw people in the community that I had kind of like up here on a pedestal. I'll be like, oh my God, that Scott Durow is a god. That person is amazing. This person is incredible. You know, I had all these people that I looked up to, and I still look up to them as in I admire them. But I think we forget that we are all human beings. We are all exactly the same.
Yeah.
And we all have our own insecurities. We all have the areas of the Power Platform where there are things I see people post and I think, oh, God, you are so smart. How did you figure out how to do that? Oh my God, you're amazing. We have that sort of fanboy or fangirl moment, don't we, with people? But when people say that to me, I find it uncomfortable, because I think, no, I'm not anything up here. I'm the same as you, and we're all learning together. We're just at different stages in our journey along the way, you know?
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's so true.
Welcome.
Like when I started out on Power Platform about going to like 8 to 9 months ago, I just felt completely like I don't know anything. But there was something that Keith said to me, Keith Walkley. He was like, you don't just pace it. Don't look at what you don't know. Look at what you've learned. Right? Keep your eyes on what you need.
Yeah. And no one understand as well that I think with one of the things that I've seen with Power Apps, because there are two different types of, well, there's actually 3 different types of Power Apps, but mainly what gets talked about is Canvas apps. But there are the people that are in the Dynamics world that have been doing model-driven Power Apps for years. And now I see people tweeting that have just figured out the model-driven Power Apps, and I'm like, oh, but I know that, and I've known that for ages. But then they'll post stuff about a Canvas app, and I think, oh, I didn't know that. There's a lot that I don't know. So I think, again, we're all going through our own journeys, and we're all at completely different stages in those journeys. So.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
I'm sure other ladies on the call are totally inspired by it. I'm inspired.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so inspired. Thank you so much. All right. So we'll take questions at the end. If you have any questions for Megan, just hang on. You can drop it in the chat box, or just keep it till the end of the session. Okay.
Show you something what I prepared for today. Okay, so my session is about how to make a conference app in less than 30 minutes. So recently there was Build conference, and I thought, hey, I would like to have a nice app for this Build conference because the user experience I got from Build website was not that I was totally pleased with that. And I built an app, and I learned a lesson very hard by making this app. And it was like, you can give your app a name, but if you don't hit the save button, you will lose everything just if you accidentally close your browser tab. So I lost everything because I did it straight, and I needed to rebuild that app from scratch. And I was like, okay, so now that I know what I did not know before, I could make that in less than 30 minutes. And I was just like, for me, a challenge. So very short, and about me, this is my 8-bit avatar. And you know, perhaps I'm not the classical developer. I call myself a maker, but maker always means a little bit of code. And I chose to introduce myself with some JSON codes. I'm Luise, I'm from Germany. My favorite number is 42. I'm an MVP for Office Apps and Services, and usually I say I'm not that deep technical, but I evolved over the last 2 years quite technically. So I do a lot of graph stuff and a lot of Power App stuff in the meanwhile, so I'm working on that. In my day-to-day life, I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant. I focus on strategy, art of teamwork, simplifying business processes. And today I want to talk about how to make a conference app in less than 30 minutes. So we will see how this goes. I'm very excited to be here because it's my first time in this meetup, and thank you. So what we are going to do today, so this is what I do again. But what are we going to do is we're making an app in less than 30 minutes. And of course, I pre-recorded this for you because sometimes I just needed to add some clip speed. But please be assured everyone can make this app in less than 30 minutes. So, okay, so what are we going to build? I thought it would be very nice if I had the following features. I want to display the sessions. I want to display my sessions. I want to display a Twitter feed according to that conference, and I want to be able to rate my sessions. So how do we do this? Of course, I want to use CDS, but it was the first time I did that, and I tweeted about that because I tweet about everything that I do. And lucky me, Chris Huntingford, again, the second shout out, said, probably you should set up a new publisher and the prefix if you create a new solution, because this is best practice, and he recommended that. And another awesome member of this community, Mark Hartley, said, hey, friends, don't let friends use the default publisher. And so I educated myself about that, and now do this. So you can see me here creating a new solution. My prefix is M365P, just because I'm the M365 princess. And I'm using, of course, this new publisher to create a new solution. And inside of this new solution, you see me here creating an entity. So if you are not familiar with what is CDS and what is an entity, to make a long story very short, an entity is just like a table, and CDS is the preferred way where we like to store data if we're building Power Apps. So this is not a session about CDS. I can highly recommend Sarah's session about that. So there are there's a lot of content out there to explain that, but right now, just say it's a table and we can store data there. Okay, you can see me here. I give this entities of this table a nice name, and I set a primary field, and this field, of course, is my session name, because able to write sessions depending on the name. So if it's the name how to build an app, then I want to be able to create several other fields and have the ratings of that session in there. So what we see is rating overall, and the data type is, of course, a number. Why is it not a text? Because later I want to have nice rating stars, and I want to calculate perhaps something later. So it's always better if you choose the appropriate data type. So rating speaker skills, rating audience interaction, and so on. So just writing timing. So I just set up a few fields and saved that. And after I did that, I thought about, okay, now that I have my database, my data model, and even if it's just like super simple, I want to create an app. So what we will do is we say, hey, we create an app, we give that app a nice name. So here it's demo conference app. I chose phone layout. And what we first do is, first screen, I want to add a nice background image. So I like it if it's pretty. So of course I prepared something for you. I filled this picture for the whole background, and now I choose the theme. So I can write a little bit HTML and CSS code, and I was like, wow, so where do I now upload my CSS file in Power Apps? And I couldn't find it. So the very easiest thing is choosing a theme, so you do not have to change every single buttons and text labels and font sizes color. You can store those values and variables as well. In this case, I just went for a theme to make it very easy. Okay, so let's see how this goes. I add some icons for my navigation. Home icon. And what do I have here? Like and dislike for my session ratings, and calendar for my sessions. What else? Okay, so now very easy, and perhaps you know this feature from PowerPoint. I just align my icons, so I just say, hey, distribute horizontally so that they are perfectly, I put them in the bottom area of my screen, and now I need to disable the home icon. Why would I do that? It's quite easy. I'm on my home screen, so it doesn't make any sense to click on a home button or on a home icon. So I need to disable that to give the user a clue, hey, this is not going to work. Now I want to duplicate my home screen because I don't need to reinvent the wheel. So I duplicate this home screen, I rename it, I call it sessions. And what I now want to do is I now want to fill the screen with data. And where does the data come from? So Microsoft Word Conference, they provided me with ICS files, so with files in my calendar for those sessions. And I put them into my Outlook calendar. And perhaps you might know in your Outlook, you can have several calendars. So perhaps one for work, one for private, one for events, and even shared calendars. So what I did is I created a calendar in my Outlook, which I called events. There are all my conferences in so that they don't interfere with my work appointments and stuff. And now I connect to exactly this calendar. So what I do is I search for Outlook, I find the Office 365 Outlook data source, and as I am already here, I don't know if, as I'm already there at the data connectors, I connect to Twitter as well, as I know that I want to display Twitter tweets as well. So I don't like to click too often, and I have a challenge of making this in less than 30 minutes. So we connect to Twitter right now as well, although we do not need this on this screen. Okay, so this is Outlook, this is Twitter, I have a username, this is nice. So now we need to get our calendars. So what I did was I created a drop down and set the items property to Office 365 Outlook dot calendar get tables dot value. So how could I do that? I'm pretty good in reading the manual. So I spent my life on docs.microsoft.com, and if you do as well, you will come up very, very quickly with what do you need to write there. So how should I do that? So you see me here, it's a drop-down menu, so we don't want that sample. What I just type the name of the connector, then a full stop, and then just look what the IntelliSense shows up. So at this point, I just changed from display name to name and back and forth again. And now I see here it's demo events. I don't want that. Now I filter. You can see that here. I filter by display name, and the display name needs to be events. So this drop down, although it's technically a drop down, it will always show the calendar where all my build conference sessions are in. So what we're now doing is I will set the visibility of this drop down to false, because I don't need to see that. It just needs to be there because I want to refer to it. Okay, so now we need to disable the session icon. We did that before on our home screen, so we will enable the home icon and we will disable the sessions icon or this calendar icon. And now we will create a gallery. What is a gallery? A gallery visual representation of a table. So perhaps you might know that sessions or events in a calendar, this is just a table. It's just another way to display a table. So we have some columns like when does it start, when does it end, perhaps are there already attendees, what is the description text, what is the subject, and so on. And we will just nicely display those information in this gallery. So how does this go? I click on gallery, I click vertical, I say, hey, I want to display my Outlook calendar here, and now I need to specify which I want to display here. And I specify Outlook.calendar get items. So I want to have the items of my calendar, and of which calendar. It should be the table that is selected in my drop-down field. You remember I have a drop-down field. What does it show? It shows always my events calendar. Why does it do that? Because I set a filter on that drop-down menu. So this was quite easy to do so. So I say .selected, .name, value. Okay. So we're adding a label for the title. So because I want to have it pretty, and I say, hey, this is my sessions, and I expand that field a little bit and say, hey, here, please center that. And of course, a little bit of UI is always nice. And I work a little bit on the font size. What I now do is I enlarge this gallery so that it's almost full screen. Someone is not on mute. Sorry. And the next thing is I want to display something else, just like here. So what I do is in the title, I say this item dot subject. So subject refers to the subject of the event of my Outlook calendar. So just the title of the event. And in my subtitle, I want to have the body preview. So this is what's in the text field of an event in your Outlook calendar. And after that, I said, yeah, but I don't want to have a picture or an image because this does not make any sense. But what I do want to have is, I say, I want to have the time, so when it starts. So I said this item dot start dash this item dot end. So we can do that, but the thing is, it won't look pretty, because if I do so, you will see it's not very pretty, especially not for European eyes. So we are not used to that, and I don't need the full date. So, and I struggled a lot with date and time, and it just did not work. And then I was like, okay, then I will just take this hour and this minute function and style my or format my date with these functions, and it worked pretty nicely. So what we're doing is I say hour of start, hour of end, and so on. But there is a problem. There is a problem which I would like to show you. Do you see this? It's 6:00 and not 00. So if a session starts at 4 p.m., which is for Europeans, it's 1600. This is not nice. So I want to have a second zero if the minutes are 0. So what we're doing is I just do an if statement and say, hey, if the minute of start time equals to 0, then please write 2 zeros as a text. Else just write the minute of start time and the same thing for the end time. So in the meanwhile, I learned how to properly use format date, but this is how I did that, and I wanted to show you how I did, and learning is always appreciated. Okay, so next thing we do is we will sort those sessions by date. Why would we do that, or by starting time? Because right now they're alphabetically, and if I want to attend sessions, I'm more like I just have kind of timetable in mind. So this is the first session I will see, and this is the second, but I won't go through an alphabetical order of items. So I will just sort and say sort by start, and this is quite easy. It's just like an Excel formula. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we will duplicate our sessions screen. Why? Just because we need a very similar screen for our Twitter feed. So what we're going to do is we change title label to Emma's Build on Twitter. We disable the Twitter icon and enable the calendar icon. And now we want to display the build tweets. So how do we do this? We already connected our app to Twitter. Is we need to specify what we want to display, and as mentioned, I always say Twitter dot, and then just wait till the IntelliSense pops up and say, okay, this is search tweets. I want to search for a certain tweet, and this tweet is the official tweet hashtag of the conference, so it's hashtag MSBuild. So what I do is I specify my fields. I want the tweeted by, so the tweet author. I want the description, perhaps, or the location. I chose the location in this case here, the tweet text, and the location should be on the right. Yep. And tweet text should be underneath that. And now I want this little arrow, this little icon to open that tweet. So not only open Twitter, but open exactly this tweet. To know how this works, you need to understand how the syntax of a tweet URL works. So it's twitter.com/ and then the username, which we have in this tweeted by, then /status/ and then a tweet ID. And we will find both values here just in the IntelliSense. So it's quite easy. So what I do is I say here in the onSelect property, you see this here, onSelect. And inside of this launch function, quotation marks, HTTPS, twitter.com. Don't forget the /. Yep, there it is. And then I concatenate. So I just stitch those parts together. And I say, hey, tweeted by, and I concatenate again with an ampersand, like as if you do that in Excel, and say status in slashes, in quotation marks because it's text, and concatenate again to this tweet ID. That's it. And now this arrow will open this particular tweet. So I press the Alt key to do that, and you will see here it is. This is exactly the tweet. Okay. What we will do now is we will create a new screen as a form, and we will call it ratings. So first time we say, hey, new screen, and I need to get rid of a little bit, but first I set my background picture because I want to have a consistent design experience. It's very important to me because if it's not pretty, I'm not going to use it. And now we just copy paste our navigation items. So I just copy, paste. Yes, we need to disable this one now. And now we're going to pretty things up just a little bit, so it doesn't hurt. Reduce, I will get rid of this bar. I don't need that. I will lower that. Why would I do that? Because I want to have it at the same position like the other galleries in my other screen, so that it really looks like very, very nice. Okay, so I give a title, session ratings, and now I need to connect this form to my CDS entity so that we can record our feedback very properly. So what we do is we connect to this particular entity. And after we did that, we change the default mode of our form to new. So when I built that the first time, it was the first time I used the form, and perhaps you find this stupid, but it took me like an hour to find out that I needed to set this default mode to new, because new means you can't actually submit the feedback. Otherwise, you can just edit this form, and then there's an error. And yeah, so this is very, very important. So lessons learned. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we will change the session name field to a drop-down menu. Why? Because I do not want a user to type in a session name. I want him or her to select from a list of available sessions. So you can't figure out a name, but you need to rate a session that you actually, perhaps not attended, but that is actually in the session catalog. And where do I have this list of sessions that are available? I already wrote that function, and it's quite easy because it is only the values of my calendar. So to make that drop-down work, and this is the only a little bit more complicated thing in this app. So we need to select the form and change the session name text fields to drop-down menu. So we say allowed values. And after that, we will select this session name data card and change the allowed values to this function. Office 365 Outlook. This is our connector. Calendar get item. Down, selected name, so my events calendar.value. If we want to, we can sort them by start time as well, but it's not mandatory here. After that, we change the data value of our drop-down to subject. This is the most important thing, because by default, it's on body preview, which means that that you don't see in your drop-down the title of a session, but the description of a session. And after that, we need to change the update property of this data card value.subject as well. So you will now see how this gives. It sounds more complicated as it is, I promise. Okay. Here we go. So we change it, we click on advanced. We need to unlock, that's very mandatory. And you see me here changing the display name. I could have done this in CDS, but for some reason I did not, because I was not familiar with that. But, so please do the data work in CDS and not in your app. Okay, so we changed the allowed values to the function we know already, and now I start by start time. And now you can see this session name. This does not look like a session name. Join someone as they do something. This is not a subject. This is a body preview. This is a description of a session. So what I do is I just say, hey, I want to have the session name. And now I change the update property as well to .subject and not to body preview. And now I just want to have pretty rating stars for these number values, just like here it is. So the overall conference feedback and the rating of the content and rating of the speaker interaction and stuff. So I want to have rating stars. I don't want to have a user to type in a number. So this is not what I wanted to have. So we give just like stars. And now we just need to change display names again. So this is seriously the recording that I did when I didn't. You see, so this is the second app that I built actually. So nowadays I would do exactly that in CDS because it's easier there and the work should have been done there. But and you see it takes quite a long time because you first need to unlock that, and there is no button, just unlock all, because PowerApps wants to prevent you from making changes unintentionally. Okay, so if someone submits a feedback, user should see just like a success screen, and lucky us, there is already a template for a success screen, so we can use that. I decided to change the color value, something like that, and I wrote another text into that text label, so thank you for your feedback, you're awesome, something like that. And now I specify what happens if I click on that icon here, just like I want to submit that form, I want to navigate to my success screen, and then I want to reset the form so that I could rate another session as well. Okay, so now I'm working on the navigation. In the meanwhile, I learned I could work with screen transition effects as well. I didn't know that when I made this app, but this is a learning as well. So most probably I should do a second version of this app, or just like improve it a little bit, but it seriously works, and it does not take a long time to make a conference app, as you can see, because we are almost say navigate and then name the name of my screen, and therefore I find it so useful that I renamed my screens so that it's not screen 1 and screen 2 and screen 3, but I always rename my screens like the title fields that I have in a label. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm on my rating screen. Well, this takes a long time, and we stay under 30 minutes, so guess what? That's awesome. Okay, so we navigate to Twitter here as well. Okay, for the success screen. The success screen, this is no screen where you actively navigate to, but you just land on this success screen if you submitted a form, because I said navigate to this success screen, so we need to do this here as well, and only 3 functions, and then we're done with that part. So persistence is a skill, ladies. Just saying. Okay. Now I wanted to use the notify function. So notify is a nice thing which is implemented if you have a form. If it worked, so if the form was successfully submitted, I want to indicate this to the user, just not like with the success screen, but with the, hey, this worked. And if it did not work, there should be a text that's like, hey, something went wrong. And we have different notification types for that. So that is clearly visual. So it's green for it's good and red for it's not good. So the notification type success is green, and notification type error is red, so that we or that the user can easily see, okay, something went wrong, just like the form is broken, the internet is broken, so something does not work. Okay, our home screen, it looks a little bit empty right now, so there's nothing but navigation. So I said make it your MS build. I would just center that, give it a larger font size, 30 perhaps. Yeah, make it blue. Put a little bit upside. Yeah, 40 is even better. Okay, time to publish our app and try it out. So I said save. I said publish. It's now available on my phone as well. I click. Here are my sessions. I click the session rating. I say, hey, hello world in 3 languages was awesome, and it worked. You see, it's green. I click on my home screen. I click on Twitter. I open the actual tweet. I did not want to rebuild the whole Twitter client, but yes, this is my app. And guess what? This recording was 17 minutes. So I think we kind of rocked that. And if you like that, And if you think, hey, I can learn something from Louise, then please do connect with me. You will find me on Twitter. It's @LouiseFraser. You can find me on my website, which is m365princess.com. And I'm very, very happy to share my knowledge with you and to learn from you in return. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I had my eyes glued to the screen, like for the entire period. I was just like, wow, wow. Okay, how's she gonna do this next? And I was, oh, amazing. This is
Thank
really.
you.
I've never connected an app to Twitter before, so.
It's quite easy. So I recently rebuilt my. So I made my own Twitter client. And it was quite easy to do that, and because sometimes my mobile app, so I missed some features, or I wanted to display things in another way, and so please do, because the data is already there, so you do not need to first do stuff in CDS or in SharePoint, or to do stuff which prevents you from making it now. But there is already something, and therefore I decided to start with Twitter, because yes, this was my second app.
That's the other amazing part of it. Wow, thank you. So I'll keep my questions to the end. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this.
No, of course. Okay,
please save your questions for Louise till the end. We have our last speaker coming up now. Okay, so I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Is it Azure or?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay, so yeah.
Right.
Oh.
Whew. Okay, bear with me. I'm a little nervous just to start that off. So as Boyan said, my name is Azure McFarlane. I live in Maryland. I work for a company called GSK, and some people may know it as GlaxoSmithKline. So we are a producer of pharmaceuticals, vaccines, and consumer health products. I don't actually work with like the Power Platform on the level that these wonderful women have, told us about. I work as a senior technologist, and I work with manufacturing technology. So my job is project management for helping drugs to come into the plant so we can manufacture them. It's also bringing in new manufacturing technologies on the floor, supporting manufacturing operations, just surrounding biopharmaceuticals. So how I got into the Power Platform was I kind of fell into it. My workload had become a little light. Above site decisions had brought us to, like, my project was going to be produced, and there was this flip-flop back and forth. And I kind of fell into like working with Microsoft Teams. It was brand new at our site. Not a lot of people were using it. And I started sticking my hand in there, trying to make myself useful and telling my team about it. And then we had a newer team at site. Prior to about mid last year, we had one effectively data scientist at our site. And so GSK has been having this huge push to make digital data and analytics like accessible to all, and bringing us into 2020. We use a lot of data, like generating by the second from all our equipment, and there wasn't really a great way that we could display it. You guys know the drill, that there's a spreadsheet on somebody's desktop that has these metrics, and you have to share it around with a bunch of people and make it locked out. So we're looking for a better way to make more rapid decisions, to stay on top of our KPIs, our key performance indicators for drugs, and a few other things. So this group brought in Microsoft to teach a flow in a day course. And the email simply said, like, hey, there's this software by Microsoft that can help you take care of some of your redundant desk work. And I was like, okay, I have nothing to lose. And showed up to this course and not knowing what we were going to do. And this wonderful trainer took us through how to create like a workflow approval process. And that's not something that really I will ever have to do in my life. But what really impressed me was the fact that we made this workable process with little to no coding whatsoever, and we did it in a couple hours. And I won't lie, I didn't understand 50% of what was going on in this class, but my brain was just going pew 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 with all the potential possibilities that we could do with this platform. So leaving that class, I was just so impressed that Microsoft had made an automation solution that was accessible to people like me. My degree is in biochemistry. I don't have any coding experience. I dabbled in HTML for a while, like when I was 10, building some websites. But apart from that, I have no coding experience. My background isn't in computer science. It's not in IT. But me, as a person at site, could create flows, apps, or Power BI dashboards. And this group has been really instrumental in upskilling people by providing like app in a day and Power BI dashboard in a day on their own to teach us to be more of citizen developers. So my first flow was to copy and replace a file. Every Monday, we have our safety team send out a PowerPoint presentation, and it's a new safety topic, and everybody at the site is supposed to be discussing it at like their weekly stand-up meetings or daily stand-up meetings. The funny thing was sometimes the safety team didn't send out an email. Sometimes they didn't even let you know that it was updated. So early in the morning, somebody would go check, it may not be updated yet. And to eliminate that process completely, we knew that the file would be updated, by 9 a.m. on Mondays for stand-up muster at 9:30. So I wanted to create a flow that just said, pull the most recent version of this file from this website or from SharePoint and put it on our SharePoint. And whatever file is currently there with that name, just remove it. And it worked like a charm. I was so excited to build this flow. I was in the back of a car traveling with some friends. I'm a runner, so we were traveling to Delaware for a race for a couple hours away. And I'm in the back seat of my friend's station wagon, my laptop in my lap with my hotspot on my phone, trying to figure out this flow because I was just that excited to build it. So that's kind of how I fell into flow, and then trying to figure out some other smaller things that I could automate. And it kind of grew into something much more than I anticipated. I've only been working in this platform for about 6 months now and have had opportunities to speak here about it. We have an internal online community called the Power Rangers at GSK, and it's for the whole Power platform. And we have people like asking questions about Power Apps and Power BI and Power Automate. But what I noticed was our company has focused a lot on Power Apps and a lot on Power BI, but not so much on Power Automate. So I started sticking little tutorials in this group. Like here, let's automate a planner task, a once a month planner task. And I put it in a PowerPoint and was like, here's step-by-step instructions and some screenshots, and put it up there. And it caught the attention of a mutual colleague of mine and Foyen's. And he was like, can you do more of this? This is great. And then people from other parts of the business started reaching out to me to be like, well, what if I want to do this with this? And I was like, okay, let's figure it out together. Because I was like, I'm still a beginner. I don't really know. And so it just kind of like went from there, joining the Power Rangers group. Now I'm that person that when Microsoft releases a Power Platform conference on YouTube, I'm in my chair for 8 hours to watch it. I've had the opportunity to now potentially do, not potentially, but I'll be joining a project where I will actually have to learn how to code in order to use Power BI for a nationally used batch tracker for some of our drugs around the country. Trying to think what else. I'm also going to be leading a Power Platform bootcamp for Power Automate. That's a pilot program with some colleagues who are over in England. So I've gained enough proficiency to upskill some of our beginners to do some projects as well. And they're like, why aren't you in our department already? So it's really great to see the doors that this has opened, whether it's joining a tech-focused sector of my company, or maybe even exploring a career outside of tech. Trying to think. So I'll stop talking now. I wanted to kind of run through maybe a couple of flows that I've been through. If we have enough time, I wanted to actually like demo from like a template to how easy it is to really create it. So I'm going to share my screen. So I have two in particular that I'm thinking about. One was to solve really a communication issue that I had. So we're here. All right, so here, I'm going to run through a really quick note about the Flow website. So I think what's really great about the Power Automate is that Microsoft gives us the ability to create things and we don't have to do it necessarily from scratch. As a beginner, you can type in, search for an application that you want to automate. And they provide so many templates. What's phenomenal is it's not only Microsoft creating these templates, it's also citizen developers. So people like you and me creating templates, and they share them with the Microsoft community. And you can see how popular some of these are. So use case that I had for this was Microsoft Teams has been relatively new to our site. I started dabbling in it last year, like I said. And we had, myself and 3 other colleagues decided to put on like a Teams help desk. So we started doing some virtual trainings for people to get them used to it. And then we also wanted to open up an avenue for them to answer questions. So we created a channel in Teams where we wanted people to be able to ask their questions and we answer them. We could provide screenshots for people to answer their questions. And then we also wanted to give them a second option of being able to send an email. The issue that we had though, when we sent the email is because a lot of us have multiple like group inboxes at Spring, it was really easy to miss this email. So we wanted to figure out like a comprehensive way in order to, 1, alert people that we've gotten their message, but 2, reminders for us that we actually have something in the inbox. So I created a flow that would do all of that for us together at the same time. I'll give it 1 second to load. So I call it the Teams Help Desk auto message. So I'll run through this really quickly. And this could be part of a templated one too. So my action is when an email arrives in this shared mailbox, I want it to do a few actions. So 1, we said that we wanted to let people know that we received their email. So we have an email that says, thank you for contacting the help desk. We'll get back to you. And in the meantime, here are some resources that you may find helpful, right? This is nested under a condition. So what we didn't want was if we're having an email exchange with someone and they send a reply back to us after their original message, we didn't want them to get this message again. So we said, okay, if the subject contains so somebody's already responded to this message, yes, then we don't want it to send an email. But if no, then we want them to get this email. That's all that means. And then to solve our issue of not having to check the inbox to see if there was something in there or missing the alert, I had it post a message as the flow bot to the team. So this flow takes about 2 minutes to run, so I can test it out now, but it might take a little while to run and we can revisit it later. But effectively, I just put hi, and all the team members of the help desk who said, okay, there's a new message in the Teams inbox waiting for you. And it's really helped here. I have an example, but it says here that we have the message here in the Teams help box or in the Teams help desk inbox waiting for you. And what's been really valuable about this is that now I can go ahead and reply to this message and say, I've got this. So, and it'll also send a message, or my colleagues will get a little alert that says, hey, I'll take this message. Prior to this, I had it going as an individual chat notification to each person that says, hey, there's something in the inbox. But then we'd have to go into a chat room to discuss who's going to take the question and then go back and answer the question. So it kind of came to a point where this has worked really, really well for us to mitigate a lot of issues. And so we'll go to the inbox and answer the question, and that takes care of that. So that's my communication way of doing it. Since it takes a while to run, I won't do that right now, but it's a very simple way to improve communications. The second flow, I actually have enough time to do it, is a larger project that I've been working on, and I can actually demo this one. So at our site, we have deviations for our products. So it could be anything from the power goes out for 5 minutes to something very egregious, like somebody dumps an entire, like bioreactor full of cells. And in this case, our deviation specialists have a number of tasks to manage these deviations. There's a whole investigation involved. We have to assemble a team. There's a lot of paperwork. And so you kind of cut down on the amount of tasks that were needed to do it. I created a flow to help them manage a little bit. So I had to scrub some data here and we'll make it run. So quickly to go through the flow. So we create several products on our site. And what I wanted was when a deviation is entered into the system, and for us, we use SAP, we have it populate a SharePoint list with a couple of things, and then it has this cascade of events. So I want to be able to take some templates, some documents that are used to manage the deviations and put them into a folder for us. I want it to create this folder. I want it to create these templates based off of the product. And so I put product A, product B. So this is my switch code. So this will only run when I've selected a certain product. It has it create a folder. This is going to get a little big, sorry. I want it to create a folder on SharePoint, drop a couple of templates in here. And then what I want it to do is create some planner tasks. So in a certain planner task, I want it to create a bucket with a deviation number. So now that the deviation specialists don't actually have to manage on paper what they need to do. So it has just a list of things in here, like they need to submit a couple of forms, they need to create their investigations, maybe do some interviews. And this way it's also visible to anybody who has access to the channel. So managers, this would really help them out. And then what I wanted it to do was I wanted to, in this Teams channel for this specific product, I wanted to drop a message in there saying, hey, this whole package is ready and this is going to be the conversation thread. So we don't have to worry about going in our email and the investigation specialist can type some notes there, tag the people that she needs, and there's no emails back and forth getting lost in people's inboxes. And the last thing I wanted was to send a message to the person who submitted the deviation to say, all of this is done. So I'm going to very quickly simulate this. So as we can see right now, the folder, the SharePoint site where I want to create the folder is completely empty. Normally this is actually full. And I'm going to go here. And this, normally nobody would be putting this in by hand. It would be automatic, but for now we're just going to simulate it this way. So numbers, we're going to say it's product A. Deviation description, we're going to say TechStylers are awesome. And then a couple of things that I need is I need a user ID because I can actually create an email address out of this and a name. So if we hit save, go back here, we'll actually see our flow begin to run. And if we give it a couple seconds, we'll start to see some pop-ups come up to say that something started running. It will run for me. Okay, I'll get one more minute and then I can just show you the results of what it would look like. There we go. Okay, so it's starting to run now. And as you can see, I'm already getting some alerts here. And since I'm on Do Not Disturb, you won't see, but normally there is a purple card that pops up and said the Flowbot has a message for you. So we can go into here and see that my test succeeded, my flow ran successfully. And you can actually pick out, like, you can see what the inputs and the outputs are as it populates here, which is pretty cool. All right, so we'll go here. And what I said, I wanted a couple of things to happen. I wanted to be told that this whole package has been created. So now we have the name of the deviation, the TechStylers are awesome. It's telling me that I've created all these templates. It's gone over to the channel that I've chosen and it's dropped a message saying, hey, TechStylers are awesome. This deviation has been created. And if we go back to the SharePoint site and I refresh that, so our product A, we're going to say it's toothpaste. It's gone ahead and created a standard naming convention and dropped all these templates of these documents in here. And this has cut down, well, it's going to cut down on a lot of time because this is normally a very manual process for our deviation specialists to have to mitigate. And then the last thing is we went in here and created a bucket full of planner tasks. So now, and I was even able to assign myself one, that we need all these tasks created. So this is a project that I've been personally working on for the past couple months. That is one that we will be using at our site soon. And I don't consider myself advanced in any sort of capability, but just from playing around in Flow for a little bit, this has been the result. So I guess that's it.
Wow, wow. This is so amazing. Like, you need to see the thread on the chat. This is productivity on another level, collaboration, coordination, communication at its peak.
It's been so much fun to do it too. Like, that's the problem. I'll spend, extra time outside of work trying to develop this and working with the groups that will be benefiting from this to sit down, like, what do you need? What would be best? And any part of this is interchangeable. If they decided they don't want some function of it, we can take it out. Or if they decide, I actually want something different, we can put that in there too. So I really enjoy the flexibility of Flow, whether it's like a simple one or a more complex one.
Super. I'm totally thrilled. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, anytime.
And this is no beginner Flow. This is an advanced Flow, very advanced. Thank you for sharing. Wow. Okay. Abigail, are you there? It's time for questions and answers.
Yes, I'm here. Thanks to everyone that's spoken. Tolulokpe, Onye, Megan, Azure, and Luis. Yeah, I hope I'm right. Thank you. In fact, it was a really great session. In fact, I've been writing, and look at my pencil. Okay, so it's time for question and answer. If you have questions, please kindly notify by raising your hand. I hope you can do that. There's a way you can raise your hand. You just click on that raise your hand icon. So I would call your name. I think Louise is raising her hand.
No, I'm not. I am?
Oh, yeah, okay, yes. Okay, so please, if you can hear us, please unmute your mic. It's time for questions. If you don't have questions, we're going to ask you questions. I have a lot of questions there because, I've been writing, so there's a lot to talk about.
I think if no one has questions, we will honor donor and assign homework.
I will do it.
Okay, great. There's a whole lot to ask from Onye's session, Louise, Megan's session, Azure. So please let's unmute our mic and ask our questions. And if the body is asking, you're going to go back home with homework, tons of them. Okay, so Foy, I think the body.
All right, I think Louise asked Azure a question if she wrote a blog about what she just shared with us. I'm also curious. I'm also curious to know if she did.
No, I'll be honest. I hadn't really thought of starting a blog. And I see people asking what my LinkedIn, my Twitter on. I know Foyen and I talked about this. I haven't updated my LinkedIn in a while, so I think it's time. I'll drop my Twitter handle there. I just reactivated my account, I think within the past 2 months or so. So I guess I need to be a little bit more active on that too.
Yes, you do. You do. You need to be more active. Okay, so I think it's time for you to start blogging. Also, I mean, I just started blogging too. I wrote my first blog last month. But it's very helpful. You never know who the blog is going to help, right? Someone gets stuck and they just run a search and find your blog. I've been saved so many times from other MVPs' blogs. So I mean, we're getting so much out of their writing, and we should also give back. So I think you should. That's an additional homework for you.
I'm very flattered.
One thing I was going to say as well, and I think Louise, you might have this as well, or anyone that's got a blog. I've written blog posts in the past for myself that I have gone back and referenced again, to where I'm like, I know I did this, it was about 6 months ago, and thank God I wrote about it. So even if that's the reason why you start, that is huge for me. It's like my own little sort of repository of like knowledge that I'm like, I did it once, but can I do it again? But you've already got it written up and you've got the steps. So even if you look at it, that's the reason you start. That's not a bad reason to start.
So blogging to me means nothing can beat that feeling of Googling stuff and finding your own blog post. Yeah. I think, wow, that's a smart person. Oh, that's a smart person. Nothing beats that feeling. Plus, so if you blog, if you make videos or content, so it doesn't matter if you write or if you talk or if you show. So you choose which content you like to create. But if you do so, you gain new knowledge. You solidify your own knowledge. You build up a portfolio. So you just display what you know, which is always good to prove, hey, I did that. Yeah. So. And if you say, okay, I'm going to blog 1 time a week, that's awesome. If you say, I'm going to blog as well, but please do that. And even if it's just like a tiny little bit, if you think, okay, everyone in the world knows that, no, they don't. And there is at least one person that desperately seeks for this tiny little piece. And if you have just like end-to-end walkthroughs, like we saw that today, it's valuable as well. But please don't be intimidated by, hey, there is someone who just walked me through their process of whatever, and I can only say, hey, please press F2 if you want to rename a screen. That's amazing as well. So just in case you don't know, you can press F2 just to.
I think as well, actually, like one thing to think about is, for me, I was impressed by how you picked things up quickly, and the way that you explained things was very straightforward and very clear. So the things that you have done on your flows, a developer or someone that is maybe more technically minded might have written about it, but I might read their blog post and it might be like, okay, they've made all these assumptions, they've presumed that I know how to code or that I know how to do this, so they've missed steps out, whereas you're coming at it from a different angle and you're not necessarily coming from a tech background, so you would probably put all those little bits into a blog when you write it up because you know the angle that you've come from. So it could be 2 blog posts about the same thing, but I could understand one way better than I could understand the other. Yeah. So focus on that as well and just be like, this is my voice, this is my approach. So. Yeah.
But I think we all know those blog posts. Hey, there are 6 easy steps to achieve X, whatever. I will start with 4 because everyone knows how to do 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, I don't. Please show me step 1 as well, because I can easily scroll if I already know this, but please show it to me, or please refer where somebody else shows this. So you do not need to reinvent the wheel, but please then say, hey, there is a nice blog post about it or an easy to understand video. So watch that. I will stay here and grab a coffee until you're back. Yeah. So, but hey.
I didn't think I'd be coming out of here with homework.
Yeah, tell us when your first blog is out, okay? Share it with everyone.
Will do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for Onye. I don't know if she's still on the call.
Yes, yes, I am. I'm here.
Okay, Onye, so how maybe Onye and Megan, right? So because she's also done a bit, she's done a couple of things that are not core technical, like techie stuff. So how do we get started with at least trying to understand the business side of all of this. Like what's the easiest way to get started? Is there a user-friendly blog that is not so like full of business words that you get bored after reading the second sentence? Something we can follow, so we start to develop that side of us, and we're not just lost in the technical world.
Okay, there's quite a bit. I think because of the way social media is now, there's so much news out there. You don't even have to want to go into the real details of it. But before you even start, the first things to understand is what are the key things that drive a business? So the key things that drive a business are, their financials, the customers, their internal processes and systems, the people, their relationships, the stakeholders that are influenced or affected by that business. Once you have that understanding in the first instance, the next thing is to then try to situate, your own organization within that framework, i.e., what are your organization's financial objectives? What do they stand for in terms of how they treat their people? How do they develop people within the organization? What are the internal processes that have been put in place to drive the business? Then you step out and you move into industry, But in terms of looking for particular sites or organizations where you can pick up information, you could start with, like I said, I'm a big fan of a lot of this consultant insights. So I do quite a bit with McKinsey. I do a lot of McKinsey reading, because a lot of times their stuff are very high level. So it's not deep. If you want it to be deep, you're going to have to pay for them. So a lot of times what you find on their insights app or website are very top level information. So it's easy for you to digest. I do quite a bit with Bain as well. I read a lot of Bain. I read a lot of HBR, which is the Harvard Business Review. There are so many webinars going on now. You could find one or two, especially from these organizations, that just speak to general business and start to, listening, to start to get a hang of what drives a business. There are just some key major business KPIs that are the same across every business. Every business is in business to be sustainable. And if you're going to be sustainable, you have to care about how you are making money. You have to care about your customers. You have to care about how you set up your processes, your systems, your tools for working. You have to care about your people, because the life of any organization is the people. So beyond the technical abilities of those people, you need to also keep them motivated. You need to make sure that the environment, the culture of the organization is fit for purpose to deliver on the objectives that you set for yourself as an organization. So essentially, just keeping your ears open and trying as much as possible to catch other, oh goodness, she's so cute, to catch other news, not just tech news, but general news. So for example, there's news going on recently about how Unilever has pulled out or stepped back on, carrying out any more advertising campaigns on social media. They've pulled off Facebook, Instagram. So news like that is news that is out there, but be interested enough to, at least try and understand why and what is the possible impact. So things like that, because you can, at some point, whilst you're in a meeting or at work, you can actually reference those points when you're trying to, buttress a particular point or make a case for something. So it's always very important to step out of, I was looking at the chats and I noticed that someone actually quoted Satya, the CEO for Microsoft. Yes, he's the CEO for Microsoft, but there's a whole lot more that he does or that he's known for. You know, he's known as that very empathetic leader, and that is very critical, and that has been attributed to why he's so successful. But you know, you could say, yeah, Microsoft is a tech company. Why does he have to be so interested in how people feel and how, you know, his stakeholders feel? But that is critical for him to understand what the market actually needs at this time. So it's always very important to, you know, broaden your mind, stay very alert, pick up news. No news is small news. Everything can be relevant. You only just have to find the time when it actually comes into use, and you just learn to apply it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
I would like to introduce you to someone. This is Clara. Hello,
Clara.
She's happy.
Hello, Clara.
Hi, Clara.
Clara built her first app last week.
Wow.
Oh,
girl.
She beat
That's
me to it.
wonderful.
Oh my
She's an app
goodness.
maker now. She rebuilt Michelle's app about rock, paper, scissors. Have you seen that? So, Michelle, thank you for sharing that. This is Clara, and Clara built rock, paper, scissors. And we used your the GitHub repo to get the images, and I introduced her to what is an if statement in Excel. And 10 minutes later, .com. And yeah, so she's addicted now because she needs to make a new app next week.
That's awesome.
Wow. Well done. And thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Michelle, for your app.
Yeah. You're welcome. Michelle wants to see Louise also, so she has to wait for the presentation. So I just open my my camera.
Okay.
This is Clara.
Clara said she has an app idea. Clara said she wants to make a tic-tac-toe game.
Wow. Okay.
That's doable.
Then you have to watch session 2 of Power Apps for Kids.
Okay, Power Apps for Kids. That is already
session 2.
It's on YouTube. Session 2. We did session 4, and in session 2 they describe how to make tic-tac-toe. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. In session 2, it's the kids, the boys of Peter Veenstra.
Yeah.
They teach us how to make a tic-tac-toe app.
Very, very cool. So we will do that next week. Okay. Cool.
All right.
Show us the game afterwards.
So you see next generation in the call. I love that.
Show us the app afterwards, Clara.
Oh, of course we will.
Okay, sounds very exciting, and I think I need to onboard my son also. I'll start off with the rock, paper, scissors app. I think that's the first one I'm going to build. I have
you have the resources. You can try it out.
Yes, I would. Michelle, I'll reach out to you for that.
Okay, it's okay.
Yes, thank you so much. All right.
Thank you all for the nice sessions.
Yes,
it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring, and learned a lot of you all. Very cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. I don't think we have any questions in the chat box. Okay, someone. Abigail, do we have any questions? I'm just double checking.
No, I checked already. No
questions. All right. Okay, thank you so much. So we'll meet again in July, the last Saturday of July 25th. So we can all please block it in our calendars. 25th of July will be our next meetup. And I trust it's going to be a very, very inspiring one.
Yeah.
Like, So let's keep doing the thing. Let's keep the blog posts coming, and we would also have a newbie show us an app in July. So we're taking on the 30 days challenge with another newbie who'll be presenting TechStylers. All right, ladies, thank you. It's been over 2 hours of amazing time. And thank you so much. Thank you to all our speakers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening.
And you
or
too.
morning.
And you too,
Bye.
Foyi. Yes,
Bye.
bye. Bye. Bye, Hajra. Bye, Onye. Bye, Megan.
Thank you.
Bye.